Howdy folks, and welcome back to Mingles with Jingles, the weekly series where you ask the questions and I babble on incoherently for half an hour in a vain attempt to make you think I'm actually answering. Tankfest fast approaching, be there on the 30th of June. A lot of you have been asking how you're going to recognise me when you see me there. Well, I will be attending wearing a German Panzer Crew uniform, Second World War era, and it's going to look a lot like this. It's coming along pretty nicely. I've got most of the badges and awards sewn onto it. I just need to sew the cockade and the Bevo Eagle onto the M43 side cap, and we'll be ready to go. So if you do spot me at Tankfest, I have a limited selection of goodies to give away. So, don't be shy. Walk up, say hello, shake my hand, and if you're quick enough, you'll win some prizes. So I hope to see you there. I'll be at Tankfest on the 30th of June. That's the Sunday. So, on with the first proper question, I suppose, and this one comes from Tube Hiru. He wants to know if by cosmic coincidence a wormhole opened up, swallowed me whole, threw me back in time to a World War II battle of historical significance, which battle would you like it to be and why? First, this might surprise a lot of you, but I have to say that I'm not actually that keen on witnessing mass death and destruction on a huge scale, for any reason. However, if I had the opportunity to witness the events of the 6th of June 1944 for D-Day, I don't think I could possibly pass up on that kind of opportunity. Having said that, if I was going to be at Normandy on the 6th of June 1944, I would much rather it be from a very, very safe altitude. For, a number of reasons. One, I don't particularly want to see people getting their arms and legs blown off. And two, in a Spitfire is probably one of the safest places to be during, an event of that magnitude. Especially considering that the Luftwaffe hardly made it to the D-Day beaches at all. Actually, there's a couple of myths flying around about that. People saying that they were the only... I know that the Arado 234 Blitz bomber, in its reconnaissance version, made two of them made an overflight of the Normandy beaches, but this wasn't discovered until after the war, because they were flying so high and so fast that Allied air forces didn't even know they were there. And there's the story going around about the two Bf-109s that strafed the beaches, and those were the only Luftwaffe aircraft that were spotted over the Normandy beaches the whole day of the 6th of June. There are various claims that that's a myth, that the Luftwaffe did actually attack the beaches in some strength. And that, I think the truth is probably somewhere between the two. In just about every account you ever read of the Allied participants, they always make at least one reference to seeing or being shot at by the Luftwaffe. George Blackburn makes a lot of references to being shot up in open countryside west and south of Caen. Another author, Max Hastings, relates a tale about one of the Allied air commanders was doing a photo reconnaissance sortie on either side of the lines and showed the results to Eisenhower to explain why the nightly Luftwaffe bombing raids were able to score some success in the crowded beachheads. But when you look at the official records, for example, of the German 3rd Air Force, they claimed 327 sorties were launched during the day on the 6th of June. But you've got to look at what do they mean by 327 sorties. So that presumably that includes all sorties flown out of air bases in France on the 6th of June by the 3rd Air Force. Okay, so not all of those would have been sent to Normandy. But, what do they mean by mostly in the landing area comment? And what that total of 327 doesn't say is what number of planes were sortied actually against the landings but never made it due to being shot down or turned back by the massive fighter screen that was protecting the whole area. And you've also got to look at, against the Luftwaffe total of 327 sorties made on the day, well, you've got to balance the 12,000 sorties that were flown by Allied fighters on the same day. On the 6th of June, the Allies had 52 fighter squadrons providing cover over the beaches. They had another 6 in immediate reserve, they had 15 covering the sea lanes, and 24 squadrons waiting in England to respond to, wherever they were needed. So, while it may have been true that the Luftwaffe mounted 327 sorties on the day of the 6th of June, very few of them actually made it to the target area, due to the just overwhelming air superiority that the Allies had. And even if they didn't shoot down everything that tried to make it to the beaches, and they certainly didn't, some Luftwaffe aircraft made it through. I definitely believe that the safest place to be on D-Day would probably be in a photo reconnaissance aircraft flying over the beaches. So in a sort of... you never get a short answer from me, do you? Yeah. Where would I like to be? D-Day. From a very safe altitude, with a very powerful pair of binoculars. The next question must have been asked 70 or 80 times, and it's a little personal, but I figure I may as well just answer the question now and put it to rest. And the question is always a variation on the theme of, Jingles, are you married? Do you have any children? No, I am not married. I have no children that I know of. I almost got married once. It was a bloody narrow escape. She was a young lady from New Orleans in Louisiana, actually. But it just didn't work out. And that's the closest I ever came to getting myself tied down. I certainly don't regret not being married. I wouldn't be able to do this sort of stuff all day if I was. The closest thing I have to any kids is I have 2 sisters who don't seem to be able to do anything but produce sons. So I've got 5 nephews, no nieces, and that's pretty much it. This Super Pershing was really pissing me off. I thought, screw it. Low health, ramming speed. There you go. That's how you deal with a Super Pershing who's managed to get himself hulled down and whose commander's hatch you seem incapable of hitting. Okay, a whole bunch of you have been asking questions, all related to do with the replays from World of Tanks. And specifically, it's usually been, how do I view a replay that's from a previous version of the game? You've got replays going back to patch 7.5, and you can't watch them. Well, you can't watch them because if you want to watch a patch 7.5 replay, you need patch 7.5 World of Tanks. If you want to watch a patch 8.2 replay, you need the patch 8.2 version of World of Tanks. That's why you cannot watch old replays. And that's why, in my games folder, you will find every World of Tanks version going back to patch 7.4. So there's my current version of World of Tanks, and then I have 7.4, 5, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, and Common Test. I've also got the North American version of World of Tanks, and there's World of Warplanes and stuff. So, inside your World of Tanks folder, you will find a replays folder, and you will see that each and every one of these replays has a World of Tanks icon. That's because your computer has associated the file with the extension WWII, i.e. all of your replay files. It's associated those files with this file right here, World of Tanks X, in the current version of World of Tanks. Always whatever is the live version of World of Tanks. So if you go into your World of Tanks version 8 replays folder and try to run that file there, which is from World of Tanks version 8, it won't try to run it with World of Tanks version 8, it will try to run it with your current version of World of Tanks. Now you can fix that so that this file is always associated with World of Tanks version 8. But then every World of Tanks replay file will be associated with World of Tanks version 8, and that means you'll never be able to watch any of your current replays. So there's a very, very simple way of fixing this. And it's probably going to be most appropriate to those of you who are complaining that you don't know how to watch your World of Tanks Common Test replays. These things here. Well, not those things there. Those things there. So, in order to run one of these without it trying to flash up your current version of World of Tanks, you want to run it with the World of Tanks Common Test engine. What you have to do is open World of Tanks Common Test folder in a new window. And then you go back to your replay files, pick the replay you want, drag it and drop it on the version of World of Tanks that replay supports. So this is, if you look at the top, Computer, Local Disk Games, World of Tanks Common Test. It's a test server replay file. In order to run it, I need to drop it on top of the test server World of Tanks executable file. Simple as that. That's how you run a World of Tanks replay in any version of World of Tanks. Next question comes from Sidaud Azdwa, who wants to know, Jingles, how old do you think your fans are? Actually, I can tell you exactly how old my fans are. This is my YouTube video manager, and if you run a YouTube channel and you have actually posted any videos, you get this little tool here, YouTube Analytics. So there you go. Over the last 30 days, there have been 2.7 million views, 25.5 million estimated minutes watched. Holy shit. Nearly 12,000 subscribers gained. That's pretty damn impressive, actually. 60,000 likes, 1,500 dislikes, 33,000 comments. If you wonder why I don't respond to every comment, there's your answer right there. 33,000 comments. My videos have been shared 318 times, 2,500 new favourites added, 175 favourites removed. Top 10 videos? Patch 8.6 preview seems to be quite popular with 66,000 views and 758,000 minutes watched, 1,600 likes. But it's down here, demographics. There you go. Let's have a closer look. So, unsurprisingly, the majority of my views come from the United Kingdom, the United States and Germany, with Canada, the Netherlands coming in a close 4th and 5th place, and then again unsurprisingly Sweden, Poland, Australia, Romania, Finland, the Czech Republic, and so on and so on and so on. No real surprises there. Let's have a look at the next page. Portugal, Greece, Lithuania. See what sort of countries you wouldn't expect. Vietnam, 10,000 views from Vietnam, and nearly 10,000 from Taiwan. Japan, Israel, lots of Argentinians. Yeah, that's good to see. Saudi Arabia, unknown region. What's that? Let's have a look. We have no information about the geographic origin, so there we go. From the neutral zone. 4,000 views from the neutral zone. Belarus? That's kind of surprising. I would have expected more than that from Belarus, you know, given that's where World of Tanks is produced. But then again, you know, there are plenty of Belarusian and former Soviet YouTubers as well for those guys to watch in their own language. What else do we have here? Moldova, Puerto Rico. I've been to Puerto Rico. Fantastic place. Loved it. In fact, how many of these countries have I been to? I used to live in South Africa. Been to the UAE. Been to Saudi Arabia. Haven't been to India. Been to Cyprus. Been to Malta. Been to Puerto Rico. Been to Colombia. Been to Egypt. I've been to Guernsey. I've been to Kuwait. Oh no, haven't been to Morocco. Numbers are starting to get cut. Macau. Wow. Trinidad and Tobago. Qatar. Been there. Jersey. Been there. Uruguay. Been there. Isle of Man. Been there. Peru. Been there. Dominican Republic, been there. Brunei, I've been there. Iraq, surprisingly, I haven't been there. Jamaica, yeah, been there. Bermuda, yeah, been there. Bahamas, been there as well. So anyway, there you go. There's the demographics. Doesn't tell you how old the viewers are. However, if we go back to demographics and we look at gender, look at that. 5% of my viewers are female. You go, girls. But here you go, male and female, and this is the demographics. You'll see that the overwhelming majority of my viewers are all, and this may surprise a lot of you, but then again it may not, between 45 and 54 years old. In pretty much every country that you look at, the top demographic is always in at least from 35 to 54, in one of those two brackets. So it's all the old fogies. It's what I always said. World of Tanks is a first-person shooter for old men. It's not like running around playing Call of Duty. In World of Tanks, you get to fire a shot every 8 seconds. So it's an old man's first-person shooter. And that kind of bears out when you look at the demographics. The USA, 45 to 54. The UK, 45 to 54. Germany, slightly younger, mostly 35 to 44. and 25 to 34-year-old. The Canadians, another strong showing from the Canadians, and again, it's all the old guys. 28% of my viewers between 45 and 54 years old. You go to Holland, the Netherlands, same deal. It's the same demographic. Sweden, slightly younger, but the biggest demographic there is between 35 and 44. It's still all the old folks. So that is how much, the spread of the age of my viewers. The overwhelming majority of you guys are aged between 35 and 54 years old. So that answers that one. A little look behind the scenes of the Mighty Jingles YouTube page. James Gigner 33 wants me to tell you all about my experiences during the First Gulf War. Yeah, okay, why not? It was actually my very, very first ship. I was fresh out of training as a radio operator. And I got sent to join HMS Brazen out in Dubai. It wasn't, when would it have been? I think it probably November 1990. It was a couple of months. It was when Desert Shield was building up, and just before Desert Storm kicked off. And I was sent out to join HMS Brazen, which was a Type 22 frigate in Dubai. And I got flown out in company with two other guys. I'd never met before, but they were both joining the ship as well. And we arrived in Dubai, and the ship was doing a boarding up and was going to be delayed for a week. So we had to stay. It was terrible. We had to stay in this 4-star hotel for a week, full expenses paid, waiting for the ship to arrive. So that was pretty good. Dubai's a fantastic place. More so now than when I was there. It's really kicked off with the tourism industry over there now. It's a real rich man's playground. But it was the first time I'd ever travelled, if you like, outside of home. I mean, aside from living in South Africa and Swaziland, we didn't really go anywhere when we were in South Africa or Swaziland. Just being in Africa was the big deal. Never really took any foreign vacations, so this was the first time I'd actually had, a foreign holiday. So that was fantastic. But then I joined the ship, and the thing about being on a warship during a war, especially in my job, was that it's really, really boring. As a radio operator, the ship had to stay in constant radio communication with the UK and all the other ships in the squadron and the task force and so on and so on. So the main communications office was manned 24 hours a day, constantly monitoring the various different broadcasts and so on and so on and so on, providing communication circuits for the ops room and this and that and the other. Even when the ship was alongside, the radio operators, the ROs, were always working. So what we used to do, we went into what you call defence watches as soon as we sailed. And what that is 50% of the ship's company are at their, not really your action stations, but they're closed up and they're working, and the other 50% are asleep. And this was in 8-hour shifts, and we did that for 6 months. So you can imagine how exciting that was. I barely saw the sun for 6 months. I actually sat down and worked it out. We would patrol for a couple of weeks, and then we'd come back alongside, and it was usually in Jebel Ali in the United Arab Emirates for a couple of days. But as I said, the communications office had to be manned at all times. So what we would do is we had a port and starboard watch of radio operators, and normally when you were at sea, it was port watch on for 8 hours, starboard watch off, and then we'd swap around. When we got alongside, you needed to take a break. You just burn out if you were constantly working all the time. So we would, for example, if you're alongside for 2 days, it would be starboard watch would be on one day, port watch would be on the next day, and then you'd split the starboard watch into first starboard and second starboard watches, and you would basically half man the office while staying in those defence watches. So the thing was, if you're alongside for 2 days and your starboard watch, and the first day you're alongside is starboard watch on, so you're manning the office in these 8-hour shifts. So you might, for example, your second day is your day off, but you've just done the long morning watch, which is from 2 in the morning till 8 in the morning. And then at 8 in the morning, the port watch comes on, and they man the office for the rest of the day. But you've just been turned to for 8 hours, from 2 till 8 in the morning. So the first thing you do is you go to bed, and you sleep until midday, and then you get up, you have you have a shower, you have your lunch, you get dressed, and then you go out. But you've only got half the day left, and the next morning you're under sailing orders, so you can't stay out all night. So you basically only get 6 to 8 hours off, effectively. And I sat down and worked it out. In the 6 months that we were deployed in support of Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm, I had a total in 6 months of 16 days off. That was pretty bad. And the thing was, because we were radio operators and because we had to man the communications office all the time, over Christmas of 1990, just before the whole thing kicked off and turned into a shooting war, we were alongside in Bahrain for 10 days. And the command knew that, the ship was about to hit the fan, and they wanted everybody as rested as possible, so they granted what they call station leave. And every member of the ship's company was allowed to take 5 days to just go ashore, book into a hotel, and just get away from the ship and decompress. So the ship's company was split into port and starboard watches, and then for the first 5 days, port watch were allowed to go and just live in Bahrain for 5 days, and then come back. And then starboard watch, everybody on board except the radio operators, we were not granted station leave because we had to keep the communications office manned. So that really, really sucked. Although parked in Bahrain, there was a Cunard liner, a passenger liner, on the other side of the jetty from us, that the Americans were using. I tell you what, the Americans knew how to look after their troops. You can say a lot about the Americans, but they really take care of their soldiers. They had basically booked this massive passenger liner for the duration of the war. And what they would do is they would just ship 10,000 soldiers in from the desert in truck convoys, and give them 2 days on board this ship, and it was just a party ship, right? Everything, they didn't have to put a hand in their pocket, everything on there was paid for them. The food, the entertainment, everything. And they would just party hard for 2 days, then get back in the trucks and drive back out into the desert camps, and another truckload of troops would come in. And try as we might, we could not get on board this ship. There were armed Marines on the gangway, and they weren't letting any Brits on board. So that was a bit disappointing. But I remember New Year's Eve, 1991, there was a hell of a fireworks show went off. And obviously the Yanks on the passenger liner were partying real hard. And, we went up there on the bridge wings, and we flashed up the old 15-inch signal lanterns and putting the light show on and all that sort of stuff. So we couldn't drink because we were on watch, but, you make the most of it. And of course, the next day, New Year's Day, again, I was still on duty on New Year's Day, but this was quite a story, actually. There's a guy called Sir Donald Gosling. He's a very, very successful British businessman. But he wasn't always a businessman. He used to be a chief petty officer in the submarine service. And when he left the Navy, he and a friend of his used their retirement money to buy a plot of land in Birmingham. And they turned that plot of land into Britain's first multi-storey car park. They called it NCP. The company that they founded to build this car park was called NCP, National Car Parks. Now, if you're not British, you've probably never heard of them, but they used the money from that to buy up plots of land in inner cities all around the country, and massively successful business. Made millions out of this. Well, anyway, Sir Donald decided that he'd made enough money, and he sold all his shares in NCP, and he built himself a yacht that would make the Royal Yacht Britannia look jealous. Called it the Leander, named after the Leander-class frigates of the Royal Navy. Crewed it up with ex-Navy, and spent his summers in the Mediterranean and his winters in the West Indies. But the thing about Sir Donald Gosling was he always remained a supporter of British forces in general, and the Royal Navy in particular. And on the morning of New Year's Day 1991, and this was a couple of weeks before Desert Storm kicked off, we got a phone call with about 2 hours' notice that Sir Donald Gosling was arriving. Just totally out of the blue. It was 2 hours' notice. And he turned up at about 10 o'clock in the morning on New Year's Day. Gave us time to have a bit of a lie-in with a truck full of beer. All paid for out of his own pocket. And he brought a comedian and a bagpiper along. And the comedian was also ex-Navy submariner, and he put a show on. Everybody who wasn't required to be on watch and manning their stations was basically just down at the flight deck, and free beer on Sir Donald, and a comedy show from this hilarious comedian that he brought along, who was also an ex-submarine chief marine engineer. And that's just the sort of thing that Sir Donald Gosling did, and still continues to do to this day. The guy's an absolute legend in the Royal Navy. Fantastic bloke. So that was what I did prior to the Gulf War itself actually kicking off. During the Gulf War, we hardly noticed the difference. We had to go to action stations every time the Iraqis launched a Scud missile, because we had no idea of knowing what it was going to be aimed at, and it could have been carrying biological warheads or chemical warheads. So that interrupted our sleep patterns. If you'd just done an 8-hour shift, and then halfway through your off watch, you've had a shower, you've gone to bed, you've been asleep for 2 hours, and then bang, action stations because the Iraqis have launched a Scud. So that was particularly annoying. But after a week or so of, because they were basically launching them all at Israel, we cottoned on that it's probably safe to not go to action stations every time they launch. And that was really pretty much it. It was just 8 hours of watching a teleprinter, preparing signals, encoding stuff, tuning radios, and then 8 hours of sleep, and then 8 hours again, and so on, and so on, and so on. It was really, really boring. But I don't mind boring wars. It's the exciting wars that people get killed in. So, I shouldn't really complain about it too much. Having a nice boring war means that I'll live to tell the tale. There was only the one real occasion where things got a little bit exciting. I may have told you this story already, but I'll quickly summarise it again. There was the one day of the entire war when the Iraqi Air Force came out to play. Actually, that's not true. They came out to play twice. The first time is the day I'm going to tell you about. The second time is when they all ran away to Iran to hide. And we had been sent up to provide escort for RFA Argus, which was the hospital ship. Normally, HMS London, which was the flagship of our task force, would have been providing escort for the Argus, but the London had gone right up to the furthest northern end of the Gulf, where the destroyers were. And on that day, we came up to take over escort of the Argus, and that, of course, was the day that the Iraqi Air Force decided the Argus had to be sunk. Unfortunately for us, for various technical reasons that are very boring to go into, our air defence system is a missile called Seawolf. And Seawolf is shit hot. It is a really, really good system. It's very, very short range though. But it's really good. I've seen a Seawolf shell take out a 4.5-inch artillery shell in flight. Not a Seawolf shell, a Seawolf missile take out a 4.5-inch artillery shell in flight. It's deadly accurate. If you get shot at by a Seawolf, you're going down. Simple as that. Anyway, our Seawolf didn't work properly. Oh, God bless the Royal Navy. And so the only way we could defend the Argus was to put ourselves in the path of whatever got fired at the Argus. And the two MiGs were making a beeline for the Argus. And so we put ourselves in the line of fire, basically, to take the hit and save the wounded. And that got very, very, very tense. These two Iraqi pilots got to within 30 seconds of missile launch range when a pair of Saudi Air Force F-15 Eagles shot down one of them, and the other one shit himself, dropped his bombs and ran for home. He got away, but that defeated the air attack, and that's pretty much it. In the entire 6-month period that I was deployed in support of Desert Storm and Desert Shield, that is the only exciting thing that happened. But I should probably count my blessings. got away with it, lived to tell the tale. I want to quickly address a couple of comments that were raised in response to the previous Mingles with Jingles when I answered the question about what sort of musical genres I listen to. And a lot of people were very, very surprised, considering how old I am and the kind of music that I do like listening to, that I wasn't into Iron Maiden. And I'm not. I really didn't like Iron Maiden. But I should probably explain that. For those of you who, have no idea who Iron Maiden are, they were a massively successful British heavy metal band in the 80s. Their lead singer was a guy called Bruce Dickinson, and I have nothing but respect for Bruce Dickinson. This guy was a legend. He was an Olympic-level fencer. He's an expert swordsman. He was the lead singer in one of Britain's most successful ever heavy metal bands, and he had a pilot's license. In fact, when he retired from the music business, that's what he does now. He's an airline pilot. The guy's amazing. But his voice really got on my nerves. And if it hadn't been for Bruce Dickinson being the singer of Iron Maiden, I probably would have been, a big Iron Maiden fan. But there was just something about the guy's voice used to rub me up the wrong way. I like the Scorpions, but I had friends who loved Iron Maiden who couldn't stand the Scorpions, and it was purely because of the voice, the singing style of the lead singer. So there you go. It's just a quick one to answer why I never listed Iron Maiden as one of the musical bands that I, was influenced by heavily. So there you go. Sorry, guys. I think Bruce Dickinson's fantastic. As long as he keeps his mouth shut and doesn't try to sing. Jackass 1901 wants to know, Jingles, who's your favourite Bond girl? Oh man, that one's easy. Famke Janssen had me in Goldeneye as Xenia Onatop the second I clapped eyes on her in that red Ferrari. And then when she strapped that brown leather Russian uniform on, things only got better. And, she is stunning. And she's a fantastic actress. She is really, really good. In fact, it's probably safe to say I've got a thing for Dutch actresses. Famke Janssen, Carice Van Houten in Black Books and Game of Thrones. Oh, hell yeah. But as far as Bond girls go, definitely Xenia Onatop, Goldeneye. No question about it. Now, a lot of you have been asking the following question with regards to my trusty camera minion, Eddie, who's been the guy behind the camera in a lot of the museum visit videos. Eddie is probably my best friend. There's no probably about it. He is my best mate. I met Eddie on HMS Newcastle. Oh, wow. Must have been 13 years ago. Obviously, I was in the Navy, and Eddie worked for the NAFI, the Navy Army Air Force Institute. He basically ran the shop on HMS Newcastle. The American School and the PX, the Post Exchange, and the people that work there are basically what Eddie did. Every British warship has got a NAFI shop on board, so that some place where you can buy soap and a toothbrush and toothpaste and stuff. And Eddie served with me on HMS Newcastle. Although, while it's technically true to say Eddie was not in the Navy because he was in the NAFI, here's a little fact for you, fact fans. When a British warship goes to war, the NAFI personnel on board, there's usually two of them, a canteen manager and a canteen assistant, get given the option of joining the Navy for the duration of hostilities. Because if you're a civilian on board a warship, it's just to avoid running into any unnecessary complications with the Geneva Convention, because we don't want our canteen manager to be shot as a spy in the event of our being captured. Everybody on board has to be uniformed military personnel, so they're given the option of either joining the Navy for the duration of hostilities and then reverting back to being a civilian once the shooting war is over, or leaving the ship. And in almost every case, the men and women of the Navy, Army, Air Force Institute always volunteer to stay on board for duration of hostilities and continue serving the troops. So that's what Eddie did. Was not in the Navy, technically, but on multiple occasions has technically been in the Navy due to continuing to serve the troops during times of war. So that's Eddie for you. He has his own YouTube channel as well, actually. He doesn't have quite as many subscribers as me, but he's putting his own videos up too. So his channel popping up on screen now, direct link to it also in the description below. Pop along, say hello, thank him for his service if you want to. That's my mate Eddie for you. finally we come to the part of the video where I get to give something away. First of all, big shout out to all of these guys who've donated invite codes for World of Tanks. These guys have all PM'd me, messaged me in one way or the other, and given away invitation codes for new players. Bear in mind, if you already play World of Tanks, these codes are going to be completely useless to you. But these guys are very generously, you know, they've bought a new laptop and it's come with a World of Tanks invite code, or whatever, and they've donated these codes to you guys. So thank you to all of these fellas. And the codes themselves are popping up on screen now. So if you don't already play World of Tanks and you want to get into the game, head off to your World of Tanks portal, whether that's a North American server, Southeast Asian server, EU server, whatever. These codes work on all the servers. Register an account, and at the part of the registration process that asks if you have a bonus code, input one of these codes. Now it's quite literally first come first served. These codes are not reusable, so if you're quick and you sign yourself up for a World of Tanks account, you're the first person to input whichever code it is you've chosen. Then when you flash up the garage in World of Tanks, you'll find you'll have some premium account time. It could be, you know, not all the codes are the same. It could be 3 days, it could be a week. You'll have some gold which you can use to buy yourself a low tier premium tank and just enhance your starting experience in the game. So once again, big shout out to, I mean, I'm not the one giving these codes away. These codes have all been sent in by various different subscribers very generously, so that you guys can get into World of Tanks. So thanks once again to everybody who sent a code in. There's also, as a little bonus here, a code for the game Hawken for $50 of in-game currency. This one was sent in by Scuba Steve WA, in addition to a whole bunch of World of Tanks invite codes as well. So there's a little bonus there too for anybody who's thinking of playing Hawken. And that brings this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles to a close. As always, if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer in the next episode, which will come out next Monday, leave the question in the comments below, and I'll do my best to pick the questions that I think I can give the most entertaining answer to. As always, folks, take care on that battlefield, watch your six, and I'll catch you next time.